Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
All right. Welcome to episode number 10. My name is Tamara, and you're listening to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast, where we have Frank talk about sex and dating in the modern world. And today we are discussing love languages and attachment style again, but more as a foundation. And today we have Danielle is back. She is the dating coach based in Sydney with a degree in psychology and years of experience in studying human behavior. And actually we had this discussion at the end of our session last time and didn't record it and kept talking. And I think it was very necessary. So welcome again, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back again and to do, a further discussion about these topics because they're always interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we mentioned, literally like these are the foundation of like great relationships. I would say the love languages, knowing your own, knowing your partners. And then to me, ideally you have the same ones to make it work. But, and the book is, if I'm sure everyone's aware of it by now, but The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And it says how to express heartfelt commitment to your mate. And there are 5 love languages. And those are quality time, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And the attachment styles we covered before were either secure, anxious, or avoidant. So do you have any opening comments on that, Danielle?
Yeah, I guess from the kind of people that I've worked with in the past, I know that you've got your 3 forms of attachment styles. So you've got your anxiously attached people, your avoidantly attached people, and your securely attached people. But there can be a crossover between these, and I think it's really important to understand that crossover. So you can get like anxious avoidant partners. So they're avoidant because of that, I guess. They're scared to form that attachment with someone. So because of that, it makes them act in a certain way. So if your partner is anxiously avoidant, it means that they'll have some of the signs of being an anxiously attached partner. So maybe the behavior that's a bit out of character when it comes to things like, I guess it's called protest behavior. So they'll have all these protest behaviors, but they'll be doing them because they're trying to push people away. So although that's quite predominant in anxiously attached partners in the first place, if they're anxiously avoidant, these things become even more heightened. So it becomes more of an issue for them.
Yeah, actually, I just, we won't go too much into this, but I mentioned I was meeting someone new. And I thought we had the same attachment style. It turns out we both were the mixture of avoidant and anxious. So, but we had it different ways. And yeah, it definitely, because you can get needy, as they say. So you start to get mad when they pull away. So you push them away by, yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think like something that's quite important, especially for women, that they'll probably be able to resonate with this quite strongly is when you start dating, initially you kind of have the attitude of, well, I don't care. Like, I don't care if you like me. I don't care if you're putting in effort. So whatever, like you can do whatever you want and yeah, we'll just see where it goes. So that's the avoidant part of a female coming out initially because maybe we're scared of being hurt. So that avoidant behavior is there initially. But then the more you get to know someone, the more attached you become to them. And then you get scared of them leaving. So this is where your anxious attachment style comes out. So your attachment style can change dependent on how strong your feelings are for the person that you're dating and how those feelings are progressing. So it can just bring out slightly different aspects of your attachment style throughout your relationship. So if people say, I'm definitely anxiously attached, I guess I'd question this a little bit because I do think our attachment styles change throughout our dating process. I do think we mirror repetitive behaviors. So we'll probably be able to see that we behave in a similar way throughout all of our dating experiences. But to be able to say you strongly sit in one style and you're constantly in that style, I think there's a little bit of leeway. And so, like I said, for women especially, you'll probably be able to resonate with the story that I've just told of, you know, someone who's doesn't really care about what the male is doing. And then all of a sudden they're going, well, now I've got these feelings and I'm so scared that he's going to leave that I'm going to cling on like really like so much. And the guy that you're dating is probably going, well, she didn't start off like this. She's actually started off like really laid back and chilled out. So where has this behavior come from?
Yeah. And it definitely resonates on both sides for the circumstance I just mentioned. You know, he was the same way. He gets scared early on and then eventually comes around apparently. But, and I also, we can keep going on this, but we did have one episode on this. So I was going to say, if we cover maybe more of the love languages part 2, obviously that part is going to be there no matter what. And we can fold it in as well. But I just wanted to make sure your thoughts on love languages. Like, to me, I feel like I'm not going to date anyone anymore that doesn't have the same love languages as me. Like, it just makes it so much easier to just get what you want. You know, mine are quality time and physical touch. So I like affectionate people, and I don't want to do without that anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier. I think, in all honesty, the easier it is to understand where those where those love languages have come from in a person, the easier it is to kind of manage them in a relationship. So, for example, you know, if you respond really well to physical touch, but your partner responds really well to acts of service, you've got two very differing love languages there. And the most important thing, I think, is to recognize when your partner is displaying their love and affection for you. Because if you're looking or paying attention to something different and they're displaying it in a way that they feel comfortable in doing, you might not associate that with love. So they could be doing all the laundry for you. They could be doing the grocery shop for you. And to them, this is how they show that they care. Whereas you're waiting for them to give you a hug and give you a foot rub because physical touch is the aspect that you want. So until you've had that love language displayed that you resonate with, you're just looking at your partner going, well, they don't love me because they're not doing all these things. And it's really, really important to actually be considerate of how the other person is displaying affection, because sometimes I think we get so caught up in our own love language and what we associate as being love that we forget that the other person might not actually necessarily display it in the way that we want them to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And once in the book, they have a quiz, and online you can find them now too. Because, you know, like you said, and they talk about love in the book. He talks about a love tank. You know, your love tank is either full or low, and you need the love. You know, you need to be shown to you in the right way to fill up your love tank. But knowing that they love you a different way, you can see like, oh, it actually does fill my love tank once you recognize that. Pretty much like you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ways that you're used to. I know, again, like I've spoken about love languages in great, great detail with people before. But it's understanding where your love language has come from that's going to help you a lot in your adult relationship. So, for example, I hear a lot from people that their parents have displayed love and affection to them in one way. And then as an adult, they will display it in the same way that their parents have to them, but they want to receive it in the opposite way to how they've been receiving it as a child. So, for example, if your parents, as you were growing up, bought you loads of toys and took you on really nice holidays, then you've been used to gift giving and quality time as your love languages. So they're going to be the ways that you give love to other people because that's how you've grown up around it and that's all the displays that you're used to seeing. However, normally how you end up wanting to receive love back are the ways that you've lacked receiving it as a child or as you've been growing up. So that person then might want physical touch as the way that they receive love as an adult.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Because, yeah, my my family wasn't very affectionate growing up, so it makes sense that I would like physical touch and even quality time, because my dad was working a lot, like most families. You have someone that works a lot. So. And what are some other things you in your dating coach, like stuff that comes up for you about dating or coaching others?
Well, like I said, around the whole topic of like love languages, which I do find really interesting, because I think I always find it fascinating how like I just said, we've grown up seeing love displayed to us in one way, that as adults, we only really know how to display it in the same way. So like I said, if you've been used to receiving gifts as a form of love expression as a child, that will just come naturally to you as an adult. So you know how to spoil other people. You know how to like pick out random gifts for them that maybe other people wouldn't necessarily think of. But when it comes to displaying love in like a physical sense, because maybe you haven't received it in that way, you're kind of getting a little bit stuck at how to do that. So if your partner's love language, for example, is physical touch, this might be a little bit of a barrier for you. I can speak from personal experience here. Like I love receiving physical touch as a love language now as an adult, but growing up, that wasn't how my parents showed love to me. So I find it really hard to be touchy-feely with other people. Like even my friends, I don't like hugging my friends, which is a really funny thing. And like, it's such a small thing, but it doesn't come naturally to me. Whereas it would come very, very naturally to me to like help my friends with tasks, because that acts of service was there for me, like while I was growing up. Or it comes really easily to me to buy my friends flowers if they're feeling upset, because again, like, that's what I've been used to growing up. But there are aspects that it's not that I find it difficult. It's just, it's a bit more challenging because it's not something that you've grown up and you haven't grown up seeing. So if you haven't grown up seeing it, you as an adult just wonder how to do it. But you know it's something that you crave. So you know that it exists because you've seen other people do it. I mean, we watch rom-coms and we watch Disney movies, and we kind of grow up in a way that these kind of things are inbuilt into us. So we see the big romantic bold gestures and we look at them and go, oh, I want that. Like, I haven't seen that happen. So obviously it exists, like it must exist. But then the only problem with that is that we might then build up an unrealistic expectation of love. Because if we're basing love off of films and things like that, and we expect this big passionate love that you maybe haven't grown up around, you've maybe grown up around something that's calm and realistic, which obviously, is totally fine, because that's actually what love tends to be as we get older. But if that's not what you expect love to look like, then you might end up being a little bit disappointed. So I always say to people, like, it's really, really important to sit down with your partner, even if it's someone that you're newly dating, and have like a really open conversation with them about what love looks like to them. Because like I said, if love to them is like bold, passionate, romantic gestures and like loads of like gift giving and just things like that, but to you, it's not like that. It's like sat at home on a Friday night watching TV together and making each other dinner, or, nudging the other one to make you a cup of tea, for example. Your ideas of love are very different. So again, going back to the whole love languages thing, you could be displaying love to them in a way that doesn't resonate with them. So if they don't look at love and think it is sitting at home on a Saturday night, but you're saying, oh, I'd love to sit at home with you and watch this film and we could order dinner in, because that's how you display or that's how you build that intimate connection with them, there's going to be some sort of disconnect there. So it's almost like a managing of expectations, I suppose.
That's all I can say is I totally agree. And I do, in the book, they do have suggestions for, like if your partner is quality time, that's not necessarily your thing. There's like literally like 10 different suggestions. Take a walk together, and once what someone's language you can do. Each chapter has different suggestions. But yeah, I actually, back to the expectation management, in my stand-up, I mentioned this. I'm like, we're ruining an entire generation while these Hallmark movies and romantic comedies and, the expectation thing, especially on women's part, because there are no, as I say in my stand-up, there are no guys like just like urging or running out there to be Prince Charming. Like maybe a few, but it's not like a cultural thing to all the guys want to be Prince Charming, but all the women want to be princesses. So
no, and you know what's funny? Normally the men who appear in real life who are like the Hallmark movies, we as women don't tend to want them anyway, because we generally as a population get put off by these overtly over the top expressions of love. Because we kind of trick ourselves into thinking it's what we want, but when we actually have it in front of us, it's very overwhelming. Like, I know that I've had friends experience this, I've experienced this, like, it's not even like a love bombing thing. It's just, if a guy is super, super romantic and is super into the big gestures, they'll do that. It's not that they don't want to do it. If that's how they are as a person, like, they'll do it. But actually, it's really important to sit back and go, is that what you want? Is that what you want for the rest of your life? If you marry that person, will you actually want that kind of attention on you for the rest of your life? Because that's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah. And actually the experience I just had, it started out like that, where it was very attentive, like even like, oh wait, there's a little puddle, like moving me and like pointing out different stuff. Like, and it turns out it may have been part of a grooming thing, come off as the gentleman and not so much. But yeah, I totally get it. It can be kind of like just too much. All right, so what other suggestions around this? And we can bring in the attachment styles again, but I know we talked about it basically being the foundation of, how a relationship is going to work, or the most solid ones, have a combination of, similar stuff or what have you seen that works when you're coaching?
Yeah, look, I mean, when we say similar things, I don't mean you need to be dating or you don't need to marry a person who has everything that's similar to you, because actually you kind of want someone that's going to challenge you and make you step out of your comfort zone and do different things. Like, ultimately, if you're a party goer, you're not also going to want to be dating the person that stays out until 6 a.m. Like, you want someone to bring out a different aspect of you. You want someone who challenges you a little bit. Like, I know for me personally, I'm a bit of a control freak. So I need someone who doesn't cater to that. I need someone who actually brings out a more spontaneous side of me, because otherwise I'm just constantly bringing out a side of my personality that I'm aware of already. Like, I want someone to bring out aspects of me that are slightly hidden, because that's how you better yourself and that's how you make a relationship stronger, because you're challenging each other. But if that person just complements everything that you do by doing the same thing, it's not actually going to make a healthy relationship. Like, you want someone who's going to challenge you to be better, and the way that you're challenged to be better is to have different aspects of your personality brought out, even if they're ones that aren't maybe necessarily readily available to the people that you spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, I can see that too, because there's been a couple times where, like you're saying, we're so similar, there's nothing really to talk about. Or like, yeah, I would totally do that. Or like, yeah, me too. And there's like the end of discussion because you're pretty much the same person. But yeah, female versions of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I hear this from women a lot when I'm coaching people, is that they say, I want to learn something from someone. And I think a lot of that comes from dating someone who's got different like professional backgrounds. My day-to-day job, I don't necessarily want to work with someone who does the same thing, because what are we going to talk about at the end of the day? Like, if I ask about how your day's been, what are you going to be able to tell me that I haven't experienced firsthand myself as well? I want to date someone who's had different experiences and can come home and say to me, this is all the stuff that I've done today, and it's so different to my day that I just want to keep asking questions and I want to find out more about it. A lot of women will say they don't care really what a man does for a career, as long as he's passionate about it. And I think that speaks absolute volumes. And I think this kind of is relevant for anyone, to be honest. Like, as long as you talk with passion and conviction about what you do and what you enjoy, you're going to excite the other person. You know, even if you're a bookworm and you love to go to the library every weekend and find out a different book, great, that's fine. Like, that's your thing. But you can talk about it in a way that is passionate. And when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, naturally it's exciting. Like, your voice tones change, your pitch heightens. And because you're speaking in a different capacity, the person that you're speaking to will naturally become more excited about the topic of conversation as well. So, and actually this kind of sidelines into a slightly different topic. You know, when people are saying that they go on to dates and things like peter out and they don't really know what to talk about and there's a load of awkward silences, I always say, you know, ultimately you can be the conversation creator. You don't need to wait on the other person to ask you questions. If they say, how was your day? I know a lot of us will fall into the habit of going, yeah, like, it was fine. Like, my week's been a bit crazy, you know, work's been busy, but yeah, how was yours? Like, you haven't really started a story there. Like, nothing actually, you haven't given any information that's exciting or new or like anything that they can then ask another question on. You've actually kind of dead-ended the conversation. So my advice would be just pick anything in your week, whatever it was, whether you've tried a new coffee shop or you've shopped online at a different store, like whatever it is, you can pull out literally anything in your week and then alter the whole conversation. So for example, if someone's like, oh, how was your week? You could go, yeah, it was great. I actually tried out a new coffee shop this week and it was really, really cool. Have you ever been to such and such coffee shop? It's right near this place. And oh my God, there's the cutest park opposite. Have you ever been like rollerblading? Because oh my God, I'd love to try it. And then that automatically segues you into potentially a second date because you've already given them a list of about 4 places where they could take you or an activity that you could try together. So you've been the conversation creator. And that makes you seem so much more interesting as a person than just going, yeah, like, you know, my week was okay. How was yours?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Because I know, and the same thing with online dating, when you're first messaging and you have to figure out what to talk about. Like, I usually on Bumble, I just say, hello, how are you? And let it go with whatever they say and then, you know, expand on it. But it would be even more helpful, as you're saying, to mention a few things and let them pick of the many topics that you mentioned and just see where it goes. And everyone has more of an opening. So
yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that I say is that the less conversation you can have between initially talking to someone and getting on that date, the better, because that means the more conversation you've got in your reserve. So, you know, I have friends and clients who say that, you know, they've matched with someone online and then they've been like, oh my God, the conversation is so easy. It flows so well. Like, we've been talking on the phone. And I'm like, great. How was your first date? And they go, well, we haven't been on it yet. And I'm like, well, okay, it's great that you feel like you've got that connection, but also in a day and age now where everyone is so replaceable, what is making you say, like, define what a connection is to me? Because to most people, a connection can actually only be made face to face. That's where you can read someone's body language, their facial expressions, the tone in their voice. Like, that's where you build that connection and that bond with someone. Doing that online, I think we've kind of lost what the meaning of connection really is, if I'm honest. You know, we say that we've connected with someone because maybe a conversation has gone on slightly longer than it has with the other 5 people that we've matched with on Tinder, Bumble, whatever the site is. And maybe they've asked us a question that maybe other people haven't asked us. And we're going, oh my God, this person's awesome. Like, they are so great. We've got such a connection. Okay, how though? What's the connection? Like, define what connection means to me. It means to you between the two of you. It's like, because that would be my question. You say you've got a connection. Great. Yeah, cool. I believe you. But tell me how. How has that been built? How has it been established? What's it based on? Because when you say we've been seeing each other for a month, we've got a great connection, that to me is more tangible and more believable than someone that you're saying you've got a great connection with who you've only spoken to via an app or via Messenger or via a phone call. You know, a lot of people can hide and become someone different via their phone. So, you know, you could say that you've got a great connection online, but then you might meet them face to face and instantly that connection just disappears and they're not the person that you kind of assumed that they would be, because you've built this expectation up in your head. And this is where, and I'm not a fan of online dating, because I think it's create some great, awesome relationships. And I think there is a very good time and place for online dating. However, I do think that we get very caught up in it nowadays, and we kind of create these really instantaneous connections, and then we meet someone and they haven't lived up to the expectations that we've had of them in our head, because maybe they look slightly different, or they sound slightly different to what we expected, or they're built slightly differently, or they're not as tall as there's so many different varying factors when you match with someone online versus meeting someone face to face and actually getting to experience their presence as a human being.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've always say I preferred meet sooner than later, because I did that years ago. I had a 4-hour conversation, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, ugh, like there's no attraction. There's no possibility here. So I learned, not to have big old long conversations where you feel like everything's awesome. And yeah, it can change in an instant when you see each other. And we are getting towards the end. Do you have any closing comments or final stuff to say about any of the things we talked about today?
Look, I would say when you're in a relationship with someone, and if you figure out that you guys have differing love languages, this isn't the end of the world. I've got friends who have been together for years who've got very opposite love languages, and it's just taking a second to realize how the other person is expressing their feelings for you, that you can really understand and deepen that connection with them. Because it's very easy, especially like I said, for women to be like, oh, he doesn't care because he hasn't bought me flowers, or he hasn't done the dishes, so he just doesn't care anymore. And I'm like, okay, but what are the things that he has done this week, or what are the things that she's done this week? Okay, this works both ways. Because it will be in those little gestures that you overlook because you don't count them as love and affection. It will be in those little moments where they are expressing how much they feel. And I think that's something really, really important to take away from this.
Yeah, and I will agree. Like, I was, married for a short while, and he did acts of service, and I was not someone that appreciated it at the time, but now I can see where, and then I also dated someone that was words of affirmation, and it's just not in me to say all that stuff. He even we did the quiz together. We wrote he gave me a list of things I could say to him to make him feel more loved and being honest. And he knows this, that, I might not have felt as strongly as him as well. So it's hard to say things when you're not sure you're even feeling them. And especially if you're not someone that says stuff like that. But, I do want to. And
I also think that a correlation that I've seen a lot is that people who have words of affirmation and physical touch as their top 2 love languages tend to, most of the time, be anxiously attached as well. So that's just something else to consider. Like, if you crave those words of reassurance and those compliments, it could actually have something to do with your attachment style. I always say to people to have a look into attachment styles and to really research what they are and what they think that theirs could be, because there is so much to learn in that space, and there's so much that you can learn about yourself and how you behave in relationships and how you behave in dating that are really, really important, especially if your love lives haven't been completely successful up to this point. I think it's really good doing a little bit of homework.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's a couple books, I know I mentioned it last time, Attached, and then I'm reading a new book, Avoidant, and it gives you all the love or all the attachment styles, but it focuses on the avoidant type, and there's avoidant, dismissive, and different styles there. But I do want to also say too that Danielle has her own podcast, and it's called Love Undressed, and she also can be found on Instagram and TikTok at @_ the LoveList. Any last parting things?
Yes. No, I think that covered it. Yeah, like I said, I do a lot of talking about, especially attachment styles. To be honest, I do a lot of things around that because I do find them very interesting. Like I said, I've learned a lot from my own dating life and my own experiences, and that of all my friends and family around me. And yeah, it's a very broad but very fascinating topic. So, if you think that you're dating someone who has an opposite attachment style to you, again, like there's no need to kind of freak out about it. It's literally the sheer base of attachment styles are communication.
Yeah, and it has to do with how you were raised as well. So, like you talked about earlier. All right. Well, on behalf of Danielle and myself, thank you for listening to Straight from the Source's Mouth. We have frank talk about sex and dating in the modern world. This is episode number 10, and we talked about love languages, attachment styles, and dating in general. And be sure to subscribe, follow, or there's a third one I always forget. All right. Well, thank you again, Danielle.
Frank talk, sex and dating educates.